Today is January 3rd, 2017, our first episode of 2017. We're already off to an awesome start.
It's a time in America to right previous wrongs. It's a time of rebirth, a time of renewed hope here.
We can only be talking about CES, of course. CES kicks off today.
Yeah, I can't imagine what else you'd be talking about that would happen at this time of year.
This month, later this month. I have no idea. It's fine.
No.
We don't really have any corrections for last month. We do have some stories to start off with that are continuations of stories we've been talking about, but we want to plug the store for a second. We got our store up and running a little bit ago and had level 1 merchandise. We've got our first set of mouse pads as well. So yeah, mouse pads and a funny Windows Update t-shirt, which is pretty awesome, I think.
And mouse mats also.
Oh yeah, and mouse mats, desk mats, whatever you want to call it. Now these, if you were part of the previous store, these mouse mats and desk mats are 2 centimeters taller, so they're a little bit bigger. I didn't think the old mats were quite tall enough for my taste, so they're a little bit taller, a little bit bigger. So be sure to check that out. You know, anything you buy in there supports us. We really appreciate it. It's pretty awesome. With that, let's dive into our first story.
Now, as you said, I don't think we had corrections. I've read most of the comments. We might have missed one, but it was nothing major. But we do have these stories that we've been talking about this literally since the first time we ever did the Level 1 News. And this is the fake news.
Fake news.
Oh, the fake news.
I'm sorry. There's always going to be stories about people trying to use technology under the guise of fake news to try to subvert like logical thinking and critical thinking. And there's just no substitute. The way to fix fake news is to teach your population to think, not to try to use technology to solve it. To try to use technology to solve it is only going to create an Orwellian nightmare.
Well, the German government would disagree. So they have come up with a system where this is not a law yet. This is just a proposal.
I like the irony of this. It's like, we're going to talk about terrible things on Facebook. Leave a like on Facebook. What?
So they're looking at 500,000 euro fines for fake news. Now, this is not just if you post fake news. This is if you post fake news, they identify it as fake news, and you don't do anything about it. You don't take it down.
The Ministry of Fake News, I guess.
Well, literally, it's funny you mention that, because the other part of this proposal is that each website is going to have to it's going to have to build a physical office in Germany to deal with takedown requests. So they don't want any of this nonsense like, we don't have time for you. There's going to be a staff dedicated to memory holding whatever they report.
That can't possibly end badly.
So if you're German, maybe resist that.
We've got some fake news of our own from the Washington Post.
Now, it's funny because the Washington Post, if you'll remember, really spearheaded the first instance of fake news. They're the ones who printed the list of websites that's like, hey, here's the fake news. Don't trust it.
Yeah. Well, so I guess if you put an editor's note on here, like the fine print that's like, clickbaity headline, fine print, clickbaity headline, not actually true.
Now, what's funny is before they amended the story, the headline was different. The headline said Russian hackers had penetrated the electrical grid or something like that. It was extreme. Of course, that's not the truth. What actually happened is there was one laptop
that had malware.
And it was like Russian-made malware, but of course this is for sale on the dark web, so anybody can buy it, you know.
An angsty 13-year-old could buy it.
That's like running over somebody with a BMW and blaming Germany, you know. It's anybody could have done it. So once the person who corrected this, or the entity who corrected this, was the power company that was like, no. What are you saying? We haven't been hacked by the Russians. What are you doing to us here? This was one laptop, and we've got it taken care of.
Yeah, the story was spread far and wide as well. It wasn't picked up not just by the Washington Post, but like everywhere. There's there's no kind of vetting process. You know, traditional media companies are not really a lot better than just some, you know, random grandma reporting on these stories. I mean, that's not really true. I'm being facetious, obviously, but this is why the only fix here is to teach a population to think and reason and say, oh, that really outrageous story that I heard. Should I perhaps try to find out more about it and try to find other corroborating stories? Of course, if you'd done that at the time this story came out, you would have found lots of corroborating stories saying that the Russians had penetrated the American electrical grid, when in fact, there was Russian malware found on a single laptop not actually connected to the electrical grid inside a utility.
And senators, I think the White House echoed this, many big papers and websites. This was a huge story, and it completely parroted exactly what the administration wants to sell you right now, which is anti-Russia. So everybody jumped on it. And the Post did their tiny little retraction, but I don't know if everybody did. So
did you see the tiny little retraction? Because
yeah,
it's like
it's easy to miss. It's at the top of the article, but it's below the picture, and we know that everybody looks at the picture first.
And we don't care about the political angle of this, but we do care about people using technology for subversive purposes. That's why we care. So
right,
yeah,
we're not pro-Russian, as some people might paint us.
Lord no,
we're not communists, but. That's the boogeyman, and you have to question everything that just blindly goes after the boogeyman.
Yes, it's like why do we need more power? The boogeyman?
Yeah. And remember that up until this year, the boogeyman was terror.
Yeah.
But now terror is suddenly the good guy.
Well, I also lived through a bunch of like Chinese attacks. I mean, I was in like commercially dealing with situations where China. Well, I shouldn't say China. I should say Chinese IP addresses originated very sophisticated, very powerful, very targeted attacks on projects that I was exposed to through some of my work. And no one seemed to care that China was doing all this because I guess we had a good buddy-buddy relationship with China.
Yeah.
And it's like, actually working with law enforcement on some of those at the federal level, they were like, oh yeah, that's just China. I mean, it's the internet, it's Wild West. It was a very sort of laissez-faire attitude. Things have changed a bit the last 10 years, I guess. But yeah, Russia.
Well, the copyright system is the same way. It's like, well, if you're in America, we should lock you up for this. Well, China's doing it. Yeah, but it's China. Yeah.
Well, clearly the power grid is just as important as some teenager making copies of an MP3.
But you should rest easy. It's unlikely that Putin has direct control of your water heater.
And there's somebody in the audience that's like, unlikely is not good enough. God damn it.
But the old adage of never let a crisis go to waste, well, the Obama administration is not going to do that.
They might not have control of your hot water heater, but by God, that baby monitor, they've got control of that.
So the president has actually come out with an executive order designed to counter Russian hacking. And this is specifically as it applies to elections. They're real butthurt about that election. And so they're going to, they're trying to say that the election has to be protected from outside actors. But the other part of that is they expelled the ambassadors.
Yeah,
our Russian ambassadors were put on a plane yesterday or today. I think it was yesterday. They're gone.
Yeah,
they're out.
That seems kind of like a big deal. So
yeah,
we're not going to touch that. But well, let's talk about automation because robots are going to take our jobs, and then we're going to blame all kinds of people for that.
We've got a slew of robot automation stories, and since this is the first 2017 broadcast, it makes sense. This is going to be one of the themes of 2017, one of the big ones.
Yes.
The robots are coming, and they're taking your jobs.
Well, they're taking the mining jobs, I guess, to start with, which, who would speak up for the mining jobs?
Yeah, well, we've got a few of those around here, or at least we used to. Obama kind of did away with that. So this is in Australia, and it is in a part of Australia where not a lot of people live. So it's not a big deal just to turn the robots loose and let them mine. They've got drillers, they've got trucks, they've got loaders, and coming soon, trains.
Yeah, the robotic trains that'll go all the way to port and be unloaded completely automatically. It literally is the game Factorio in real life in Australia.
And no humans are involved. I mean, there's humans running it, but no humans on the trucks, no humans on the drills, no humans on the trains. It's all robots, and it runs 24 hours a day.
I like that the bean counter that was quoted in the article was like, oh my gosh, this is so amazing. The savings are just so crazy. And they really build it up. And in this and other articles. And then you get the number and it's 15%. The savings is 15%. And you get the idea that the article writer kind of poked at him a little bit. It was like 15% savings. That doesn't seem like a lot. And the guy went on to say, he's like, oh, no, you don't understand. Inconsistencies in the way the truck drivers pull up to the depot and, that they have to take bathroom breaks and that they require sleep. Those things, and so you have to change shifts. And so, a minute here, a minute there introduces inefficiencies that really, really add up over time. And so if they're willing to go this all out over a 15% savings, I would say that it's not worth the R&D cost to do only a 15% savings. But the fact that they're willing to do it so gung-ho for only a 15% savings, I think only underscores how likely this is to take over a lot of jobs in these sectors.
Well, you got to look at cumulative gains.
Yeah.
And also the 24-hour work cycle.
Yeah.
Which, you don't need 2 crews.
3 crews.
You don't need any crew. You just run the robots.
Yeah.
And they don't take holidays and don't get sick. And yeah, it does make sense. A lot of people think, well, that's an argument. It's like, robots aren't going to take my job. Do you know what it would cost for a robot to do my job? Well, every day it's less.
Do you realize it's going to be like the robots versus Teamsters? And I got news for you. Unless you got a Terminator, it's not going to end well.
I mean, you can kill the robots. They don't care. They'll rebuild themselves.
Well, Uber here in America, I guess, is getting ready to launch Uber Freight, which is long-haul truck driving. And they came up with an appropriately punny name, which is Otto.
Well, somebody else came up with Otto. They bought it.
Oh, okay.
So the Otto company was planning this, and Uber said, oh, we want that. And, they've got a ton of money, so they just went out and bought it. But I think, I'm not positive exactly how this is going to work because they haven't released a lot of details, but I think it's going to be to the order of, it's going to be similar to that app. You're going to have on-demand trucking. So you might only run a truck every 3 months or whatever, but you don't have to have a long contract now. You're just like, hey, I need to go from Phoenix to New York on the 3rd. And they're going to find a truck that's wherever it needs to be, and it's going to do it, and it's going to be a robot.
Wow, that's pretty awesome, I guess. I guess if you've got like a McMansion, if you're a millennial that's got a McMansion full of shitty, awful furniture, it'd be real easy to move now. You can just call up Otto and have him load the semi and take all your crappy furniture and go somewhere else.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before, but trucking in America, the moving industry is a huge employer. And the quicker this catches on, the weirder things are going to get.
It's going to be interesting to see how the Teamsters react. Somebody pointed that out in the comments, I think. And it's like, they've got a point. I mean...
I think we're going to see like a neo-Luddite movement. I think we're going to see roving gangs on the highways taking down these trucks.
Was it Charlie Chaplin that said, we think too much and feel too little? I think my generation might feel too much and think too little.
Yeah, we're getting that way.
Foxconn is also on the robotics bandwagon. You guys may have remember some stories from the past about Foxconn workers being unhappy from having to do complex repetitive tasks. Well, Foxconn's doubling down on the robotics as well.
Yeah, they literally have the nets on their buildings. And if you don't know Foxconn, these are people who make your Apple products.
Yes.
They make
a lot of things.
But they're famous for the Apple products. They make almost everything Apple, don't they? And they literally have nets on the outside of the building because too many people were jumping off. So how do you solve that problem? You get rid of the people.
Yeah, you make everything robotic. They're automating their electronics assembly factories and things like that, but they're also doing a joint venture with another company, well, set of companies in China. They're building an $8.8 billion facility for completely automated LCD production. And that's on top of the automated factory stuff that they're doing for electronics as well. So Foxconn has multiple fully automated production plans in the works at multiple different factories. And this 8.8 billion LCD factory is going to be a huge deal.
And it's a 3-phase plan. Phase 1 being not huge changes, mostly the complex processes. Phase 2, a little bit more, but phase 3 is almost total replacement of humans. Mm-hmm. It's only going to be people running the robots and doing the meta planning. No humans on the floor except for repair and maintenance and that kind of thing. So it's going to be a huge disruption to human workers.
Yeah, it turns out in manufacturing, if you are in a situation where you can automate everything, you don't really need as much safeties in the actual machinery, in the actual contraptions. There are some facilities that I've been in that if you just approach the complex machinery within like 20 feet, there's a light curtain, I think is what they call it, around the machine. And if you step into the light curtain, it's e-stop for the entire machine. Like the whole, like 1 acre machine stops because there's just no safeties inside that 1 acre perimeter. And this is like that except for an entire factory. And so because you don't need emergency stop, you don't need necessarily all the safeties, the robots don't have to take into account that there might be a human being there. It simplifies the construction a little bit.
Yeah, and you can imagine this is going to bring down the cost of electronics.
Yes.
But on the other end of that, who's going to buy them if nobody has a job?
It's going to drive, well, I mean, maybe it would be a return to like 1970s economics where people are earning, you know, $10,000 US a year or something like that. That sounds a little dystopian though. That's probably bad.
Yeah. Well, you have to feed the machine. You know, I mean, in order for the factories to run, somebody has to consume the goods. It could be a feedback loop where things just get super cheap and we live in a utopia. I kind of doubt that's how it's going to go.
That's not going to, no. So it's probably not going to end that way, no. Toshiba is in trouble, though, from all of this automation and competition and some poor decisions that they've made over the years.
Yeah, it's not uncommon in the modern corporate world. What matters most is this quarter. You don't really think too far down the road because you don't know if you're going to be working there in the next quarter or whatever. So Toshiba in 2015 did some weird accounting.
Oops.
To the tune of, I think it's like $5 billion. Oops. And that has been uncovered. And because this was kind of a crime, they've been frozen out of issuing more debt.
Yep.
So they've got no way to plug this hole. They don't know what they're going to do.
I think the article said something like outstanding shareholders represent, you know, like a liquidation value of only like 7.5%, which is means the company's hugely leveraged, I guess.
Yeah, and that's not uncommon either, but usually you can go back to the table and get more debt, but they can't. So
Toshiba is a huge household name. I mean,
yeah.
You know, 10 years ago, I would have said that Toshiba would be on the forefront of this type of automation and this type of robotics, but I think this means Toshiba is done because their competition is doing the robotics stuff. Their competition is rolling out all of the automation. Their competition is doing this, you know, these multi-billion-dollar, almost $10 billion investments in these types of facilities. It's hard to imagine a future with Toshiba, which is really surprising because, you know, again, household name.
And this points out another maybe unexpected thing about the robot revolution in the coming year or years is this is going to be kind of an all or nothing gambit. You're either going to get on board the automation train and you're going to be successful at it, or somebody's going to buy you. It's going to go one of two ways. And that could consolidate, which is usually bad for the consumer.
Yeah. Consolidate's like, well, we can produce LCDs for $1 each, but we're the only company on planet Earth that can do it. So our profit margin is now 999%.
If you want an example of that in the real world, diamonds.
Oh yeah, De Beers.
De Beers owns most of the diamonds, and that's why diamonds have value. Diamonds are not valuable. They're everywhere, and we can make them artificially now, but De Beers pretty much controls the market, so you have expensive diamonds. I
knew a college professor that claimed that he could make diamonds the size of apples, but then he would just be disappeared. And it's really easy. De Beers also developed the technology to tell artificially grown diamonds as well. So to try to stop people from doing that, it's like, oh, this is an artificial diamond.
Which is a weird idea because artificial diamonds are structurally perfect.
Yeah.
And artificial diamonds are not. So something that is imperfect is more valuable than something that is perfect in our weird upside down world. So think about that if you get married.
Speaking of companies up to really terrible things, Facebook really doesn't know everything about us apparently, so they're buying data from companies that do.
Now, Facebook is known for having an amazing profile of its users. It knows almost everything about you. And it turns out it knows things that you didn't tell it and none of your friends told it. Now, if you're not familiar with this, you have an advertising profile. And this gets sold between advertisers and added to, so it gets more and more complex over time. If you buy a car, if you take out a credit card, every little thing you do adds to this profile. If you move, they know because they're constantly selling this information back and forth. And it turns out that Facebook is buying this information and building a profile about you in the background so they can advertise to you more
effectively.
Yeah, like target you. Like when we talked about the ethnic targeting. How do they know? Well, now we know how they know.
Well, that explains the fake news headlines I've been seeing on Facebook lately. It's like, Lieutenant Commander Data really recommends this political candidate. It's like, what? Really? I have to check that out. Do you think, this is funny. And we mention this now because this is really the kind of thing that's related to fake news. There is a very strong economic incentive and the technological componentry is there to make, you know, user-tailored, user-specific fake news headlines. But it's not really fake news headlines. It's an algorithm coming up with something that you're likely to click based on your profile or based on other information or based on the demographics of a population, not necessarily you specifically, but you as part of a population. And so fake news is just a natural consequence of having this type of an apparatus building this type of profile, because it's not that they want fake news, it's that they want the click, and they're willing to do anything to get the click. And so if there is a news headline that says, Lieutenant Commander Data really strongly recommends, I don't know, Juicy Juice or whatever, it's like, oh yeah, this guy will totally click that. We need to run that for this guy. He's going to click on it. It's just going to be the most amazing thing ever. It's like, you know, Lieutenant LaForge really recommends, you know, Blamco resistors, and I don't know. It's a thing.
Yeah, and so this will follow you in your regular life. I'm sure everybody's experienced, like, you've been shopping for something and you've been searching and reading reviews on it, and then every Amazon ad is for that thing. Well, this,
even after you buy it.
Yeah, this goes out into the real world. If you do things, anything that an advertiser can track and sell, if you're, you know, car shopping or whatever, and you don't even search online, Facebook's going to know that you're in the market for a car. Also, we should correct, you don't use Facebook. That was a lie.
Yeah, I definitely don't. But if I did and I saw an ad, I probably would click on it. Facebook is also deploying a content ID system similar to what YouTube has done, which I guess is to try to stop people from ripping and re-uploading videos to YouTube or to Facebook.
Yeah, and also they, you know, like music in the background or whatever, streams or whatever. It's going to be just like YouTube. It's going to be overly aggressive and err on the side of deleting things. But they're tired of having, you know, copyright material in their videos. So
I guess a lot of people have complained about. I guess production companies too have complained about having their trailers ripped and re-uploaded to Facebook, and it's a lot harder for companies to deal with Facebook because somebody might rip and re-upload, you know, a movie trailer, and it's really only shared among their circle of friends, and so there's not really any outward mechanism for, you know, a copyright spider or a copyright robot to go through and detect that unless the copyright robot is in your circle of friends,
which I'm sure is already happening. I'm sure like Warner Brothers has a robot trying to friend everybody.
Well, that's actually Facebook's ultimate plan with all of this personal data, is they're going to build, you know, a fake person to be friends with you and and really like hawk whatever products. And it's like, oh yeah, no, you're totally amazing. It's really amazing. You should totally buy this furniture. And it's like, thanks Bob.
That could work very well. That's kind of terrifying.
This is my Russian supermodel friend from somewhere, and she really thinks that I should order some more hobnobs. I
so if catfishing is doing that in a romantic setting, what's the name for the one to advertise to you? We got to come up with that. We got to blaze a trail here. Leave your comments to suggest what the name of a robot pretending to befriend you in order to sell you things is.
And catfishing, if you haven't heard of it, is the romantic version of that.
Well, that's when you pretend to be usually the opposite gender and use fake photos and convince somebody that you're in love with them online, just
in order to curry favor or get free stuff,
or just entertain yourself.
Boredom is it? Are there really people out there that are that bored?
Oh, absolutely, there are.
Oh, Consumer Reports. Apple, the new MacBook, battery life, not really an I told you so, but Consumer Reports is also not going to recommend the MacBook Pro as a buy for the first time in like ever.
Yeah, they've recommended every MacBook Pro, which makes you question Consumer Reports. If you're not familiar with Consumer Reports, they are one of the only, if not the only, consumer review publications that never have taken advertisements, ever. So supposedly that keeps them, you know, honest and clean. And it's all about the battery. They tested models. Some models did 20 hours and some did 3, amazingly. Right out of the box, 3 hours.
Yep.
So that was, it wasn't that the batteries were always terrible. It's that they were so inconsistent they couldn't recommend it.
Yep. I don't really know the details about what the testing methodology was, but I'm 97% sure that the numbers that Apple is pushing forward rely on hardware acceleration for most of the benchmarks. So things like the video playback thing that they tout, the CPU is not really doing any work there. There's just a separate dedicated area of the CPU that is there just for video decoding. The reason that the battery lasts as long as it does is because that group of transistors, its sole purpose in life is to do video playback. So most of the rest of the computer can go to sleep. It's not really a real world usage scenario unless you're using your laptop like a tablet or a playback device or something like that. And then maybe it's real world, but if you're sitting on the machine actually doing stuff, it's just not a real world usage scenario. The batteries in the MacBooks, MacBook Pros, just aren't big enough. And that's really the problem.
So, buyer beware of that if you are buying a MacBook and you expect to use it to compute things.
Now, we always joke about Amazon and their drone delivery stuff. It seems like Amazon's getting serious about their drone delivery.
I am really looking forward to drone deliveries. Now, I question a lot of the logistics. How are you going to do that? How are you going to keep the dogs from attacking them? How are you going to keep the rednecks with shotguns from taking them down? And it turns out they're thinking about this very thing. They're like thinking a lot about it. So people have found patents that they have filed. I guess the most impressive one is the mothership idea.
Yeah. It's like you've got a container ship or something and it's deploying blimps. And so it's not even maybe drones that you've been thinking about traditionally. This looks like some sort of dirigible that's basically just parachuting packages in or dropping packages in, something like that.
I think it's actually going to drop the drones and they're going to be collected on the ground and then ferried back to the mothership with another balloon.
Wow.
So
that's complicated.
Yeah, it's amazing. But so the idea is there'll be balloons blanketing the country. And that, you know, the algorithm's going to figure out how can we most quickly get this item into your warehouse and drone down to you. And it might already be there. And if you're in a metropolitan area and you're ordering a product that's in the balloon, it could be minutes. You can get your product in minutes.
Floating sky warehouse.
Yeah.
What this is, this is a testament to man's arrogance.
Yes, imagine the anthropologist. They wasted the resources on getting a product in 2 minutes. And the other patent is like we talked about, you know, of the drones being stolen or attacked or running into things. Countermeasures. They're coming up with countermeasures. Now, you know, obviously they can't get away with like shooting back, but it looks like what they're going to be doing is running them in groups. So you'll have sort of blocking or decoy drones that are protecting the real drone.
Decoy drones. That's just the only thing I know about countermeasures is when Commander Data went really apeshit in the insurrection movies and they couldn't take him out with phasers or anything because he was so pissed off. It was pretty good.
Let's hope that doesn't happen with the Amazon drones.
It's like, no, you will take your package and you will like it.
Yeah, that's. But hey, I'm looking forward to getting an item in 2 minutes. I got the impulse buying though. Is you're gonna really have to exercise control when it's like I could have this in 2 minutes.
Well, it's after Christmas, which means that everybody's new Botnet members are online and participating in the global Botnet of, you know, cameras and baby monitors and God knows what else. So there's a new Botnet bigger than Mirai.
Yeah, Mirai. So 2016. Now we have the Leet Botnet.
Leet.
And this one was, I think they attacked one. It was a security website. I can't remember which one it was.
Well, they attacked the denial of service protection service because they couldn't identify exactly where the one website was. So they took out the entire service.
It was Krebs.
Yeah.
So they attacked Krebs on security at 650 gigabits per second.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely record setting. That's really, really insane.
And it uses a different kind of attack, which looks at local files and tries to mimic real traffic more than just jamming one pipe like Mirai did. So not only is it bigger and probably has more devices at its disposal, definitely more bandwidth, it's got a more sophisticated attack pattern.
Yeah, the fact that it uses data from the local machine means that it's able to use more random data, which will escape, you know, definition-based detection. You would need some type of heuristic-based detection in order to do this, which is at the forefront of this type of protection technology for denial of service. And there's really not a lot you can do when there really are this many devices, quote-unquote, legitimately generating traffic to try to take something offline, because it's like the entire internet is suddenly interested in one, you know, very specific node, and it's very hard to guard against that, except to improve the security of the devices on the network in the first place.
Which, as we've seen, this Internet of Things is constantly working in the other direction.
One of the devices that was probably participating in that was some guy's LG Smart TV. Oops.
So this is Android. It's a smart TV running Android. And of course that is susceptible to the same things that your phone is in terms of, malware and stuff. So this guy got some ransomware on his TV.
On his TV. And LG would not help him. They're like, go buy a new TV. Now they later, once this thing blew up and got 1 million views, LG was like, oh, I guess we should help him. I guess that's the thing. So the guy uploaded the reset procedure for how to reset his TV. But the fact of the matter is that LG has a television out there that's running, I think, Android 3, because that was the version of Android that was designed for TVs. There are no security updates. There are no anything. So like the big security stuff that we've reported on the previous episodes of the news, that's how they got in. And because LG is not producing security updates for this, there are no security updates for this TV anymore. It is still susceptible. It is still vulnerable to these types of issues. The only option is to unplug it. This right here, this is the Internet of Things. This is the future. TVs are a 5-10 year device. The fact that, LG is going to be on the hook for producing security updates for 5 or 10 years, oh hell no, that ain't going to happen. There's no chance. No, it's just not going to happen. And because of that, you can't run these kinds of devices.
And
you just can't.
Keep in mind that now that we know about this, anybody who's looking to make this kind of malware knows that these TVs are susceptible to this, and it's never going to be fixed. So it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So you cannot, if you got this LG TV, unplug the damn thing from the internet. I mean, maybe from the power as well. Turn off the wireless. You cannot have it on the internet.
Is that the theme of the show? For whenever we talk about the Internet of Things, it's literally, hide your kids, hide your Wi-Fi. Millions of websites are vulnerable too. The websites will soon be participating in the DDoS botnet because phpmailer. There was a phpmailer security vulnerability that is so old and goes back so far that many programs incorporate this, and you can take over the universe with this. So
this is really common. A lot of websites use phpmailer. A lot of websites. Because you think, almost every website sends emails at some point. And phpmailer was an easy solution, and it's more secure than, a lot of the other easy solutions. So, well, we thought it was more secure. So if it doesn't get past,
on Christmas, I mean, those poor guys that ruined Christmas.
But there's going to be so many websites that have this running, and people don't know about it or just can't be bothered, and they're, it's going to be botnet country.
So if you use phpmailer, all you web programmers out there, we see you, we know. Yeah, go fix your stuff now before it's too late. It's probably already too late, honestly. Go fix it. Go clean up now, so you can at least get a look. Maybe that's good. Scientists have developed a breathalyzer to detect 17 different diseases in one breath.
Now I love stories like this. I love when medicine gets less invasive. And I'm assuming it's going to be less expensive too. So this thing works, certain problems that you can have in your body will generate more enzymes or less of something or whatever. And if you do a breathalyzer, hey, they can figure it out. I don't think this is a test that we can be like, yes, you have this disease. But it's a first step. It's like, oh, wait a minute. This reading means we better check this out.
Yeah, the implementation uses a combination of machine learning and patient histories. So a lot of data was collected on the breath fingerprint, if you will, of these patients, fed into a database, and then machine learning was used to look for a correlation between all the different sets of data and all the different types of things that were detected in the patient's breath in order to produce a profile. And there was enough statistically significant data in those profiles from each of those different patients, from all of those samples, to actually turn that into a sensing apparatus. And so this, I think, is a feel-good story for how machine learning and automation and big data and things like that can lead to a really positive result without also being invasive to the point that it's like a colonoscopy for your privacy.
Now, you do have to think about the other side of this is after the robot revolution comes and people aren't useful anymore, they may use this to decide if you're healthy enough not to cull. So, could be. Yeah.
And it's like, no, they would never call anybody. And it's like, well, it wouldn't be called that, but it would be like, oh, you're uninsurable, sorry, or oh, you can't have a job, sorry, or
yeah. You're likely to have cancer in 2 years, so we're just going to go ahead and speed up that process.
Well, one good thing about all this global warming that we've been having lately, or the increased global temperatures that may or may not be a result of global warming, that probably are a result of global warming, is satellites have spotted a massive object hidden under the frozen wastes of Antarctica.
Yes, which is very cool. I love it when there's a huge mystery like this. Now, they think it's most likely the meteor that caused one of the huge extinction events.
Yeah.
Because it's that big.
Yeah, it's twice the size of the Chicxulub crater, which is the one that's in, I think, South America. So it's twice that size, but it looks like the meteor is still sitting in the middle of the impact crater. It's just been covered over with snow and ice and that sort of thing. So maybe we can do a scientific expedition to actually figure out what this is. If it is a meteor, then yeah, definitely extinction event level craziness. But if it's not a meteor, then what is it? Because aliens is a really fun explanation, but probably not aliens.
I'm personally holding out hope that it's the lair of Cthulhu.
Well, that would go well with 2017. I mean, the way things have been going in 2016 for 2017, accidentally unleashing Cthulhu, you know, at the beginning of 2016, I might not have believed that, but now, maybe. Could be a thing.
That's change we can believe in.
Oh, the last story, which is the beginning of the next story that won't go live until noon Pacific Standard, or no, noon Eastern Time, 9 a.m. Pacific. Kaby Lake is potentially an overclocker's dream, according to this thing, seen breaking the 7 gigahertz barrier with liquid nitrogen 2. It's just, there's an article here on Hot Hardware that you could go check out. You know, 7 gigahertz liquid nitrogen. Liquid nitrogen is not going to be a thing for everybody, obviously. But if you're interested in new stuff, you know, the last time I wore this suit and tie, I think was August of 2015. So you should really check the channel for a whole bunch of videos about a thing that's happening at like noon-ish Eastern Time, something. But that's all I can say. I've said too much already.
But liquid nitrogen obviously is not a realistic use case. But if you've got a closed loop cooler, even, you're probably going to get some pretty good overclocks with these chips, and that's promising.
Yeah, if you've got a good closed loop cooler, you're probably going to be all right. Not 7 gigahertz, but nothing to sneeze at. So it's really, really exciting. We've also got a story coming up on USB 3 and 3.1 and 3.1 Gen 2, because that's not under NDA, but all of the stuff with like, what does it mean for USB? Everything has changed. And so there's going to be an explanation of what is meant when you see something that has specifications that say USB 3.0 or USB 3.1 or USB 3.1 Gen 1 or USB 3.1 Gen 2, because it's kind of confusing now. Some of it was renamed. It's a little more nuanced than that, but you should check out the USB explanation video, which will also be live around noon Eastern Time or 9 a.m. Pacific. Hope you tune in. There's like 50 videos. Watch them all, please. Thanks. Make those numbers go up. Buy some stuff from the store.
Thumbs up and share.
Hit the little bell so that you know. I don't know. It's just...
And we should thank everybody as we go into a new year.
Yes,
Level 1 Techs has had some pretty good success.
Yep.
We have lost money. But we kind of expected that. So we definitely want to thank everybody who's, all the patrons, people buying T-shirts and everything, because
we're on our way to not losing money, which is great.
And we have some really cool stuff planned for the coming year.
It's worth it as a hobby, pretty much. I mean, I've never had a hobby this expensive, but it's worth it. It's cool. It's fun. I like it.
We have a lot of equipment.
Yeah, we have a lot of equipment thanks to the patrons.
We will continue to do our thing as long as you keep showing up here and watching it.
Yes, and share and let's subscribers. And I don't know. It's fun. It's a fun adventure. And thank you all for making it possible. We'll see you next time.
Yep, see ya.